peoples. Have you missed me? Okay, so today I'm going to cover some topics that are leading up to debunking the debunkers. There are all these flat earth debunkers that are putting out nonsense arguments to prove that the earth is a globe, which don't actually make sense. And so I'm going to start, you know what, this bracelet is making a lot of noise. I think I'm going to switch it. I would like to debunk the debunkers of the flat earth because their debunking arguments are so wrong and so frustratingly wrong, annoyingly wrong, stupidly wrong, just wrong, obviously wrong, easily disprovable. In order to debunk the debunkers, we need to start on the basics because that's how they go wrong. They accept all kinds of premises, underlying assumptions, basics that are wrong, but they accepted them when they were little or just a long time ago, and then they never really question those, and then they build sandcastles on top of these false ideas, and then they don't know that their sandcastles are sandcastles, and they think that their arguments are good, but they're not. And so today I would like to talk about vision. And I've spoken about vision before, but I didn't do it very well, and I don't think a lot of people understood. And some of the comments made it quite clear that a lot of people really didn't understand what I was trying to say. So I'm going to try to scale it back and make it just simpler and more clear and just easier for everybody, and hopefully also shorter. Also, while I was just looking into these things and preparing what I wanted to kind of think about and say, I think I solved one of the mysteries of the pyramids. So I have always been interested in the pyramids, and then there's the Masonic pyramids with the eye, and it's on a dollar bill, and it's all in the different places, and everybody knows this. This is one of the most well-known conspiracy theories. Is it a conspiracy theory? A symbol of conspiracies, maybe a symbol of the Illuminati, things like that. Klaus Donna is this researcher in South America, and he found just a trove of artifacts underneath a pyramid in Bolivia, and they were ancient. One of the things he found was the pyramid with the eye at the top. A lot of people have tried to solve this mystery. Why is the pyramid with the eye on top so important to these secret societies? And why is it on the American dollar bill? And what does it mean? Why is it an ancient symbol that's been used by different societies, different civilizations apparently, throughout the ages? I actually happened upon what I think is a solution to the mystery. And so it's all on my whiteboard, and here we go. My whiteboard is hard to use because it's behind me. So we're going to have to talk, and then maybe I will take pictures of my whiteboard and insert them in where I need them. Can you see my whiteboard? Before we get on to vision, let's quickly look at the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. The all-seeing eye is our eye. It tells us about how vision works. One of the things that we have to remember when decrypting secret society codes, especially like Illuminati codes, they often reversed things. So they would have a public meeting and then the secret They would have a public meeting and then they'd have a secret meeting. There's a secret code for their followers. And so a lot of times the secret meeting was the opposite of what the public meeting was. This is why they are so evil. One example of this is the god Lucifer thing. So they thought that Lucifer was the good guy and God was the bad guy. And so everything is reversed in their ideology. Lucifer is the bearer of the light. He brings light and wisdom and knowledge to the peoples. And they see the God that other people worship as the evil bad God, who's just all proud and punishing and wrathful and creator of hell, also other things. And so often they did weird rituals that would be the opposite of what the good thing to do was. So the good thing, let's say, just you do not touch the bodies of dead peoples. And so they would have these secret masses at midnight, and they would bring in dead bodies and they would do very awful, disgusting things with them because it was a way of doing the opposite of what the church said. So there's always this idea of opposites in the secret society symbology. When we look at the pyramid with the eye, the all-seeing eye, we have to flip it, reverse it to get the true meaning. I think that a hint to this is the Star of David, where you do see the triangle and then it's reversed to face downward, like you can see right here. The motto for the ancient sects, these secret societies, this is how they were founded in ancient Egypt, things like this. They had the motto, as above, so below. That was represented by the upward-facing triangle and the downward-facing triangle. The melding of the as above, so below, of the up-facing triangle and the down-facing triangle is the Star of David. They also incorporated male and female in this symbol. Male was the upward-facing triangle pyramid, so like the obelisks, this big phallic symbol in the middle of the thoroughfares, the plazas. And then the woman was represented by the downward-facing triangle because that's the womb. So when you bring the two together, then you have the whole, the what. And so we have the pyramid with the all-seeing eye at the top. We reverse it and it represents our vision. If you think of your eye at the bottom of that pyramid, then that actually describes how we see. It describes our vision, it describes perspective. Because the way the lens of the eye works with light is such that we see horizons rising up to our eye level, and we see things above the eye level come down toward that eye level horizon. So the sun appears to set as it moves further away from you. The train tracks appear to rise as they move away from you. We actually have a pyramid of vision, and that point at the end is our vanishing point. I feel like a weather woman. And here I'm practicing for my weather woman job of the future. Here we can see how that actually looks. In our sight, the eye is at the base of the pyramid, and the point is the vanishing point beyond which we can't see. It's very interesting because things might be beyond that point. Those things are invisible to us, so they're secret from us. So hidden in plain sight. So they might be in our line of sight, but if they're not in that cone or that pyramid of our vision, we can't see it then. So if you look at the American dollar bill, you find the 13 courses of blocks that make up that pyramid. Those 13 rows are repeated in Klaus Donna's pyramid and in other ancient, older symbols of the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. So there's something about this 13 having to do with the pyramid. And here's what it is. In the olden days, far away, in the cradle of civilization, the Greeks, also the Romans and Eratosthenes and his peoples, they used to measure distance using stadia. 1 stadium, 2 stadia. They used to use stadia as a unit of measure. Here's the interesting thing. So we've said you have to take the pyramid, which is the public symbol, and you reverse it to find the secret code. And you get the 2 pyramids that represent vision. When you, I'm just off on a tangent. When you take the 13 layers and you double it for the upside pyramid and the downside pyramid, you get 26 courses. 26 stadia is 3 miles, and our vanishing point is roughly 3 miles. So anything beyond roughly 3 miles away is invisible to you, not because it's beyond any curvature of the earth, but because it's beyond the vanishing point of your vision. I just thought that was intriguing, and maybe you will too. Maybe it gives you something to build your own ideas on. Moving on. Oh, a lot of people have a lot of trouble with this idea that we have a vanishing point. The reasons why This is one of the things that I didn't really hit hard enough in my last video where I explained perspective and sight. If something is itty bitty when it's far away, then the light from that object that's hitting your eye will only hit a portion of one of the sensors in your eye. Okay, so here here we have a nice little house with the sun. This is close to you, and so it fills up your visual field. But as you move away from it, then it appears to be smaller and smaller as it moves away. And the sun appears lower and lower as it moves off into the distance. You can actually have more and more houses in your field of vision the further away they are. Because of the triangular vision, because of perspective, the apparent size shrinks as things move away from you. The things that are beneath the midpoint rise up, and the things that are above the midpoint come down and descend, and then they meet at that pyramid point at 3 miles away. If the house and the sun are near, then that fills up your field of vision. At a distance, you could have 1,000 trees, 1,000 houses. That would fill up your field of vision. So how does that explain why things disappear at 3 miles, even though they're still sitting there? The boat can still be sitting on the ocean, not behind any kind of curvature, but you can't see it. Let's just very quickly, hopefully concisely, explain why that is. Here we see an eye. This is very similar to a camera with sensors, but in our eye we have rods and cones. And the rods, all they do is pick up whether there's light or no light in that area of the visual field. Cones pick up whether the light is the color, so whether it's blue or red or yellow. I couldn't find my yellow marker, so I had to use orange, and then my red marker ran out. And so this is a rough approximation. In the eye, you can see I put the little rods are black, then the cones. When you're looking at the nearby house, there are all these cones in your eye, but each cone only responds to one color. So the blue cone is only activated if it's blue light hits it. If red light hits the blue cone, nothing happens. The blue cone is just sleeping, just taking a little nap. But if blue light hits the blue cone, then it wakes up and it sends a signal to your brain. It says, blue. That's all it says. That's all it can say. The only message the blue cone can send is blue, or not blue, nothing. That's why if you are deprived of sensory input, so you hallucinate, because your brain starts saying, is it that there's nothing coming in? Or is there something wrong with the rods and cones? And so then it just sends stimulating messages and says, hey, are you still on? And then the blue cone will say, yes, I am. Here's a blue right back at you, because I still work. And then you just hallucinate a little bit of blue. So here's a blue house with orange, but we're going to pretend it's yellow. Orange door and the yellow sun, but we're going to pretend it's yellow. So the yellow cones will respond to the yellow light in the image, but only the yellow light. If blue light falls on a yellow cone, the yellow cone just is taking a little nap. Just doesn't respond, doesn't do anything, just very quietly sits there. And then if yellow light hits that yellow cone, then it wakes up and it sends a message to the brain, and the only message it can send is yellow. And so what happens is photons, light, falls onto the cones, but the only cones that respond are the cones that have light that falls on them that is something that they know. So the yellow cone will only respond with yellow if there's yellow light hitting them. And so what you get is something like this, where in this image, only the blue cones are registering the blue, but there are red and yellow cones in between them. And so the image that gets sent to your visual cortex, to your brain, is pixels, in this case, just for ease of explanation. Pixels of blue and red and yellow, and then your brain has to interpret that and figure out what the f is this supposed to be. This is an example of something like what your brain would receive from your eyes. It would say blue here, clear. In between, you have red and yellow sensors, and they're saying nothing. The brain has nothing for those pixels. It has to fill in that information. So all it knows is that it's not yellow and it's not red that's fallen on that sensor. So on a red sensor that is not activated, the brain doesn't know if that was blue or if there was green or yellow there. All the brain knows is that there was no red. If there's a red sensor and yellow light falls on it, the brain gets no information because the red sensor can only say red or it says nothing, and if it says nothing, then that tells the brain not red. And so the brain has to figure out, okay, there's this gap in between these two blues. And so what the hell was sitting in there in between the two blues? So then your brain has to kind of figure it out using prior experience, context, expectation. And so the brain will say, I think probably in between those two blues is probably more blue. And so it will fill in that area of the image with blue. It'll just make an educated guess from all the other times it had those two blues activated and the red and yellow in between were not activated. In the past, that was usually from something that you learned to categorize as something that is all blue. And so that's what it does. What this means is that you aren't ever seeing what's actually there. You're seeing an image that your brain has to kind of create from blue, from the information that it does get. And so what happens after 3 miles out? It's a combination of things. Remember up here we said when things are further, they're smaller. You can have more of them in 1 square inch. So let's say if a blue house is in front of you, then 1 square inch is just blueness of that large house in front of you. Let's say that 1 square inch of blue light falls onto 1 cone. That's not actually the right ratio, but we're just going to pretend just for this example. So if that's a blue cone, then that blue cone will respond and send the brain blue. But if it happens to fall on a red cone, then the red cone will say nothing. The cone is just sleeping, just taking a little nap. So then your brain doesn't get information for that particular square inch. Then it has to guess, is it maybe blue? Is it yellow? It's not red, so it's either blue or yellow or green. And so then it has to figure it out. So when it has the whole house in front of you, it's all the blue house, and there's that 1 inch of blueness that fell onto a red cone, and so the brain received no information from that 1 square inch, then the brain will say, okay, well, I'll just fill that in with whatever's around it. And what's around it? Well, blue. So it just fills it in with blue, and then everybody's happy. When a blue house, is very, very far away, it is itty bitty because it's so far. Let's say that house is so far that for every square inch of your visual field, let's say there are 7 houses in that square inch and the trees in between them that fall onto that 1 square inch of your visual field. So those 7 houses, a blue house, a red house, a yellow house, no. Maybe there are 3 red houses and the rest are yellow houses, and then there's dead trees in between them. I'm making this so much more complicated. Let's say that those 7 houses are making out that 1 square inch of your visual field. And let's say 4 of those 7 houses are red and 3 of them are yellow. That's what's falling onto 1 cone in your eye. So those 7 houses are so far from you that the light from those 7 houses, this itty bitty, because they're so far away, the apparent size of the houses is just itty bitty, far away. And so when that light falls onto your eye, it falls on 1 cone, and that cone is blue, let's say. Well, the light from those 7 houses hits a 1 blue cone in your eye, and the cone tells your brain nothing. It just sleeps because there's no blue light hitting it. And so your brain says, what's happening in that square inch of the visual image? Nothing, because there's a blue cone there and the blue cone said nothing. And so your brain says, well, that means it could be something yellow, something red, it could be something orange. And so your brain has to kind of guess. And so what does it do? Well, it looks around and says, well, what else is going on in that end of the picture? And what it finds is that above all those houses is blue sky. And so all the blue receptors in that area of the visual field, the sky, they're all shooting. And so they're all saying blue, 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 blue. And underneath the houses, the green grass, because of how the angle of your eye works, what is in the foreground moves up towards a point like we see here. The grass, the ground, is going to move up to the horizon line of your vision because of how light works. And so your brain will say, well, there's all the blue cones that are above that 1 inch that are firing, saying blue. And underneath that 1 inch of the visual field, there's all this green, so the yellow and blues are firing, saying yellow, blue, yellow, blue, so green. And so then your brain says, well, it could be blue, it could be green, it could be a combination of both. You get a horizon line from all these cones in the middle of your vision that your brain is just kind of guessing at. It's saying, it's kind of a bluey green, it's kind of this line of hazy, I'm not too sure what that is. And so that's how you see it. When you look at the horizon, you don't really see a distinct sharp line. The closer you look, it's just kind of this fuzzy gray, white, little bit of everything. If you're looking at the horizon on the water, then the horizon line itself is kind of a combination of the colors of the sky and the water. It's kind of this gray, bluey, whitey kind of your brain saying, well, this sounds about right. And that's what your horizon line is. It's all the cones that are in that area that are not giving enough information for the brain to be able to make an image of it. To make an image of the house, the brain needs all the blue cones and then the orange, yellow cones for the door and the yellow cones for the sun. And then your brain can use that to make a picture. But if all it has to represent that entire house is one blue cone not firing, it can't show you a house. It can't deduce from that there's a red house or a yellow house there. It just doesn't have enough information. That's why we have a horizon line. That's what the horizon line is. That's all it is. So beyond that point, then all of a sudden, just you can't see anything because more and more things, more and more houses are taking up that 1 inch squared of your visual field as it's further and further and further away. And so then all of a sudden you have houses and trees and gardens that are all in that 1 little inch of your visual field the further away from you they are. And so then you have more and more different colors, different colored light falling on 1 cone. And so your brain from that 1 cone only has the information of if it's a red cone, red, or not red. That's all it has. And so it can't build images of houses and trees and boats on the horizon. It can't. It doesn't have enough. So that's why you can have a boat sitting on the water, sailing, there's people fishing from it, and it can be right there in front of you. But if it's just a little bit too far, you don't see it. That's it. No boat, no fishermen, no just happy people diving into the water for a little swim, scuba diving, treasure finding mission. And you don't see any of that. And this is why. And this, I think, seems to be very misunderstood, even by people who tell me that they're very educated in my comments section. Or they tell me that they are very intelligent and that the reason that we see the horizon is because of the curve of the earth. No, it's because of this. Curve of the earth. That's so silly and random. People are like, I can't see past 3 miles. I wonder why. What must it be? I know. The earth must curve away. And anything beyond that is hidden by the curve. Oh my goodness, people are so funny. The only way someone can see something over here is if the earth is flat. That's the only way. And then here's his cone of vision. This image that we keep being shown to explain how we can see things that should be beyond the curve of the earth, it's just ridiculous. It's nonsense. It's this stupid. I can't believe that people who say that they're intelligent and educated keep using this as an explanation. They are just stubbornly clinging to something that is so blatantly wrong. Why are people not thinking? Okay, guys, people need to think. I don't understand why people don't think more. Globe Earthers, I challenge you to start thinking. If you believe that I'm wrong, then instead of just quickly looking to find some kind of a proof that debunks my idea, how about you take this opportunity to think? Just think. Think about, how does vision work? And how does your globe model work?